Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Batman by Tom King. Selina helped Bruce recover and get back into crime-fighting shape at a Hawaiian resort, while Gotham was basically handed over to Bane and his thrall of controlled Arkham inmates. But the Bat is back in town, and now his alternate universe dad has been ordered to respond by murdering Damian. Okay, I know he's not everyone's favorite, but that's just rude.
Make me a better man. And now,
Issue 81's cover looks like Bane is all ticked off because he just replaced the lens on the bat signal with his own face, and it immediately cracked.
That was a custom job! $836.99 down the drain!
Bat Gramps finds he can't go through with killing his own family, but as Damian easily escapes his bonds, he says the irrelevant old man isn't family. Alfred was, Bruce is, and so are the people surrounding him. Batgirl, the Signal, Red Robin, Batwoman, Huntress, and the Mistake who stole Cassandra Cain's identity, Orphan.
Here she comes to wreck the day!
Nope, still not over it. It was dumb then, it's dumb now, and dumb shouldn't be validated. Also, a little weird how Helena Bertinelli is now considered family. Don't know if there's a story reason for it, or if it's like that Batman family of products mentality I mentioned in a vlog a couple years back. In any case, they all start battering Flashpoint bats, paying particular attention to his face.
Never start with the head. The victim gets all fuzzy.
While Signal mentions they debated whether to tell Bruce what happened to Alfred and watch him bleed Tom, or tell him in a situation where they could help him deal with the pain of his loss. The vote came down to Orphan, who simply said the butler's name, and it was decided the Allies would vent their own anger on the usurper. Yeah, that one interaction they had in another title was such a bonding experience for all of 3 panels. Also, how does Huntress know Alfred at all? Or is she just here for the love of violence? And I feel I gotta mention, the exposed eyes on that knockoff No Man's Land Batgirl mask just doesn't look quite right. I like Ramita's art, but it just feels weird to me. They've beaten him something fierce and let a lot of that red stuff leak out, but Tim wants to offer him mercy. Though, since Damian expects that to be rejected, he opts for Huntress's arrow to Tom's spine anyway. They allow their foe to get up instead of, I don't know, immediately restraining him or something, because that'd be the smart thing to do. And he haggardly calls them children, infected by his addicted son so he can appear normal. Yeah, 'cause normal is do what I say, not as I do, while you let dangerous super crooks assault and murder people, and you try to reduce your son to a simpering twit. Instead of going to all this trouble, you could have asked James Tynion IV to reinvent Bruce. You would have gotten much the same results. Helena fires her bolt, but despite his injuries, mostly to his head, Thomas catches it and plunges it into Drake's chest, saying his grandchildren may have the mercy they ask for. Meanwhile, Catwoman and Batman fought their way into Arkham Asylum, as narration captions relay their conversation. Turns out that punch he dealt to Tim several issues back was a form of cover communication, which he'd taught his allies during sparring sessions, signaling them to lay low and use more secure comms for the time being. Even if they were alone on that rooftop, he figured they were being watched by Gotham Girl, Bane's weapon that could circumvent even Justice League-level countermeasures. If punching can be a form of communication, I've got a mental list of people I'd like to have conversations with. Gee, I hope Warhammers count as a regional dialect. The message was in response to finding an empty Arkham, but they didn't show the asylum as empty, just confused staff and no signs to back up Batsy's claims that Bane was secretly running the city. If the loony bin had been emptied, that would have been a pretty big red flag for the vigilantes, wouldn't it? Also, since when did he ever train Huntress? Whatever. Pointy Ears then went after Bane, fully realizing he'd lose, and wanting his enemies to see him broken, so he could find a way to defeat them while they were so certain of their victory they weren't watching him. The answers he needed weren't in Gotham, so he had to stay away anyway, difficult as it was to essentially retreat.
Strength is not blindly charging forward, mistakenly confident in your unearned omnipotence.
Man, there are people on Twitter who are not going to like that remark, after an idiot pundit tells them to be offended and scared by it.
Strength is recognizing your own position, your own weakness, then adjusting, reimagining, so this weakness becomes your power.
Nicely inspirational words, very appropriate. but it doesn't entirely take the sting off the fact that everything from getting his back broken again, being dragged through the desert, was all part of the plan. Especially when that shtick's already been used for Bane's modus operandi. But what Batman doesn't know is that Bane wanted him to lose again, intentionally, then heal up and come back and defeat him because that defeat will be part of Bane's plan. But what Bane doesn't know is that being Bane's plan is part of Batman's plan, which is part of Bane's plan, which is part of Batman's plan, which is part of Bane's plan, which is part of Batman's plan. Okay, that was new. The detective investigated the source of Gotham Girl's powers, discovering that, without Claire Clover's knowledge, the enhanced medicine her brother Hank acquired that made them so super was a very rare strain of venom, purchased directly from its creator, the Luchador of Doom. To prevent other deaths like Hank's, he found and destroyed all the super venom, save for one dose for experimentation. Those lab rats didn't live long, but man, their abs were shredded. However, knowing Bane would want the final dose and that he could access the cave, Bats left the drug with the memory of the mountain. Though away from Gotham, he entrusted its care to someone Bane couldn't control, exploit the crack in his scheme, and could move about unseen to prevent the worst of atrocities. It seems like it's the Joker, seen here punching out Nigma, but that's actually Clayface, who, despite being exceedingly helpful in winning this fight, will not be seen after this, and no explanation will be given.
First of all, he's not a genius. He's an actor. And second, he's not much of an actor.
One slight hitch in the plan was that Bane must have put word out about the memory. However, he knew about that guy, and he was robbed and killed, the supervenom taken by Magpie, and soon to be sold back to Bane. Bruce was so weakened by his recent trials, he nearly died, failing his mission. Until Catwoman found him, helped him train back into fighting shape, and now that he's turned his lone wolf attitude from a weakness into his power, they can play into their enemy's assumption that he still thinks he needs to do everything alone, by working together. When Claire began to weaken, Bats arranged for Alfred to escape so Damian could be captured and let his siblings into the cave, to take his alternate universe dad down, while Batman and Catwoman confront Bane. Bats wanted to make Teamwork Makes the Dream Work t-shirts for everyone, but someone else beat him to the copyright. The big guy here looks like he can't remember where he parked his car and is trying to retrace his steps. But back to the cave fight, which is largely close-up panels of the Allies getting knocked around, juxtaposed to their own confident dialogue, until the Doc Knight just crashes through the grandfather clock entrance, demanding Wesker get him some tea. Since he's sort of a grandfather himself, I wonder if that's supposed to be symbolism. He's bruised, battered, but takes his seat and drinks his tea, saying he used the Allies' devices to mislead Bruce into thinking their task was completed and Tom was taken care of. He's almost proud at the cleverness of the plan, but saying the younger Wayne keeps forgetting that he's Thomas's boy, and Thomas is Batman. I don't know how well-trained Flashpoint Bats is supposed to be, but it's already kind of hard to believe he beat so many highly trained younger opponents out for blood. But you know who could have been a deciding factor and beaten him quite easily? The good version of Cassandra Cain. Too bad they only had Orphan, who's like the Cass equivalent of New Coke with added Olestra. The two final pages are of Harvey Bullock dancing in the rain, apparently wearing nothing but his hat, while singing a derisive and I think improvised song about Gotham, as we see the Legion of Doom symbol in the sky. Related to the other story, I'm sure I don't care. Issue 82's cover has our main villain wrecking a bunch of skyscrapers. Bane's gotten antsy ever since he took over, and there's been a lot more time on his hands than he expected. So he treats his boredom by having model Gotham cities built so he can play Godzilla. Thomas apparently heals real fast because his injuries from last issue are all completely gone. Ventriloquist asks him if he needs anything, and he punches the lackey, stating he wants to see his son.
I just want my kids back.
I hope Wesker at least gets a decent 401k as he follows them into the Batcave, passing the unconscious allies, and a splash page shows the place absolutely wrecked. The Bat Roomba's got its work cut out for it today. Meanwhile, Batman has formally challenged Bane to a rematch. No masks, no tools, no help from Selina or even Venom. But just as they begin, Catwoman snags the brute's arm with her whip so Bats can get in the first few punches. then draw a couple batarangs that were taped to his back. All that stuff about no help and it wasn't Cat City or her fight, yeah, that was a lie.
The trick was to pretend you were my taxes.
As she restrains their foe by his throat, Selena mockingly recites a conversation the two had earlier about how Bane wouldn't use Gotham Girl's super venom because it'd overload his system, so they'd need to use a batarang to inject him with it to take him down. But to keep him from modulating his physique with his pump, they needed to unhook him somehow, and Kyle suggested just asking him.
No way, Cat. That's so dumb. He's too smart to fall for that. Hey, I never said he was smart.
They're back to playfully bantering while pummeling an enemy into submission. I guess their relationship will be okay after all. With a batarang in his cheek and another in his chest, Bane has successfully been given the super venom, which will kill him. But Bruce offers to save him if he yields. Though I gotta wonder, if he's injected with that stuff, it'll only kill him as much as he uses his powers, so couldn't he just eye blast bats into a cinder or crush him with his enhanced strength? The Bruiser instead remarks on his 17 years of fighting against the tide that flooded his cell every night, with leeches and crabs latching onto his body, and all he wanted to do was to stop pushing, stop kicking, stop altogether. He feels everyone, the Bat included, tried to drown him, but he's still here. He throws bats across the room, then pulls on Catwoman's whip to get her closer. She mocks his years of ignorance, thinking Gotham belonged to the rich boy on the hill. It's not his city. It's not yours. It's mine. Though I have been thinking about trading it for a township, something smaller and more manageable. She starts slashing his face, and taking some disturbing delight in it by that expression, until he punches her off, sending her against the wall and knocking her out. Bats tackles him and smashes his opponent's face into the ground a couple of times, furious enough to kill him for everything he's done. Sure, he screwed with your life, tried to drive you insane, broke your back multiple times, took over your city and let your rogues dominate the streets. But you lied about fighting him one-on-one just now, so mistakes on both sides, right? Death, however, would only silence his pain, end his agony, which is kind of an unsettling take, like he's only letting him live to suffer, not because he doesn't believe himself an executioner. Though given how far he's been pushed, yeah, he's at the very least justifiably angry. He opts instead to, as so often mentioned, break his damn back, lifting Bane up over his head to give him a taste of his own medicine, and props to the artists for the villain's genuine look of concern. I can buy that Bruce can lift a dude bigger than him, but to drop Bane on his leg like that, I think he might end up fracturing his own femur at least, if not his fibula and tibia along with it. That's when Thomas walks in, putting 2 bullets in Bruce's stomach and a third in Bane's head. With all 3 combatants injured, unconscious, or perhaps dead for a couple of months, because comics, he tells Ventriloquist to get the pirate. That's a pretty dramatic way to say you want to hold a Pirates of the Caribbean movie marathon. Issue 83's cover kind of echoes back to what we just saw, Bats preparing to pull a Bane on Bane, only in their costumes and observed by a giant Bat Tom. We open to Batman in full costume, waking up at the dinner table and finding Alfred's body at the other end, as a recording of his old friend recites Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem The Children's Hour, which he'd recited years ago upon finding out Martha was pregnant. It's a more solemn choice than his backup recitation of Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby Got Back. Though, to be fair, it does sound a lot classier with a British accent. Again, props to Michael Janin and Jordi Belair for their art, because they sell just how absolutely devastated Bats is as he holds Pennyworth, tears streaming down his face. The recording goes on, having been made when the butler was still a hostage, and he recalls how he'd play cops and robbers with young Bruce, or how he was mischaracterized as sullen by the public when he was more cautious outside his home, much like his mom. But in the manor, he was quite joyous, embracing life's curiosities with a smile. Placing Alfred on a nearby couch and covering him with his cape, Bruce looks up to see "You Are Not Batman" graffitied on the wall, defacing a framed picture of the two of them, especially over the butler's face. His recording goes on that after his parents' death, he'd worry that his young charge was suicidal and kept a close eye on him, like that night he'd knelt at Thomas and Martha's bed and made his vow. Whereas previous characters in this run have called it juvenile, Alfred said it gave him purpose, changed his pain to hope for a better world for all in need, so he made sure to aid Bruce to the best of his abilities, if with the occasional objection.
Why, you're the very model of sanity. Oh, by the way, I've pressed your tights and put away your exploding gas balls.
Bruce finds all the doors blocked by walls of bricks, so strong he can't knock them down with a couple of solid strikes. I have to imagine that since these walls seem so sturdy, Thomas must have set this up before his son got into town. Either way, given the fact that he's not in agonizing pain from the bullet wounds he suffered last issue, I think maybe he just can't put in as much force as he usually might. As he watched Bruce fight the worst kind of people, lose everything, save the world, Alfred emulated his boss, with a relentless hope to see him smile again. It's not right now, as he starts wrecking the room, but when he was waiting to marry Selena on that roof. At the time this message was recorded, Alfred had already lied, informing Bruce, then in Hawaii, that he made it to safety, but he had actually failed to find a way out. Since this created a hitch in Batman's plan, the butler chose to sacrifice himself, putting his ideal above his needs. He knows who Bruce can become, the joy within him, and promises he will smile again. Back when Bats was on that plane, asking if it'd be a good death, Pennyworth told him what he wanted to hear. But truth is, he says, there are no good deaths. I can think of a few potential exceptions to that rule, but I digress. There are, however, good lives, like the one Bruce is living, and of that, like his parents would be, Alfred is very proud of him. With nothing more to say, he closes the audio out with another Longfellow poem, The Reaper and the Flowers, before saying goodbye and telling Master Bruce that wherever he may be, regardless of the horrors he may confront, he will always be loved. After Catwoman blasts open one of the brick walls, she leads Bruce into another room, where his allies all stand at attention, and led to his Flashpoint Pappy. After laying Alfred's death at his son's feet, as well as pointing out his control of Gotham, the Bat Family, and his woman, Thomas asks if he's finally done with his bat obsession.
Seriously, why do you need 7 copies of the same issue of a comic book?
Because each one has a different cover, which create one giant connected image. You never understood me.
Paraphrasing Calendar Man, Bats says it's never done, there is no progress, and neither he nor his alternate universe dad will ever stop, so challenges him to another fight for Alfred. Next, the secret history of Thomas Wayne.
Initiate flashback!
Issue 84's cover sees the two bats fighting as they fall toward a red-tinted city, possibly so that when they hit the ground, their blood will be less noticeable. The thing with this issue is the bulk of it is told in reverse, so I'm going to change things up and show it in its more chronological order. And there's nothing the Dalai Lama can do to stop me! One night, after Bruce has fallen asleep, following another reading of The Animals and the Pit, Thomas makes a vow of his own, swearing on the spirit of his parents to protect his son and war on anything that might cause him pain. And we can see how well he's held up that vow now, haven't we? Also, part of me wants to point out spirit is written in the singular and parents in plural, but as Tom is Christian, it might make some sense, since marriage is seen as two people becoming one, including in spirit, though it could also just be a typo. Could be! Yeesh! Upon that fated mugging, wherein Flashpoint Bruce died instead, Thomas tries and fails to resuscitate him, despite insisting he'll be fine, while Martha asks where her pearls are. This could be a sign of her psychotic break, but then this Martha is blonde, whereas she's a brunette in the main universe, thereby destroying the notion that the Flashpoint Waynes were identical up to that fateful night. Checkmate! Thomas tells Joe Chill how Bruce said he wanted to grow up to help people, maybe as a doctor like his dad, while bashing the killer's head in with a rock.
Why would you think that's unnecessary?
Weird that he seems to already know the guy's name. Did the mugger introduce himself before demanding the valuables? Joker Martha killed Alfred for failing to get her pearls. Thomas has become Batman and kills the familiar rogues, even those who surrender. And despite Flashpoint's drastic differences, these villains still end up looking and behaving more or less like their main universe counterparts. Well, maybe not. Bane doesn't look like he's on a throne of skulls, more like an orthopedic mattress of skulls. However, he spares Catwoman, possibly because she's the same age Bruce would have been, and they end up working together, even having their own dissenting banter about where they first met. And I guess somehow she got him to stop killing, told him that he could be both Batman and happy, and lived at Wayne Manor, teasingly calling him Dad and listening to his stories about his son.
There was a joy to him. So naturally, I outlined some psychological warfare to keep that joy alive. Shame that nightmare machine will go to waste now.
Selina would be killed by Martha, which calls into question how prepared and tactical Thomas is if he didn't consider how easily a nemesis can break into his own house when it's his wife. But She-Joker would go on to do herself in, laughing, after Thomas relayed to her his discovery that, in another universe, their son had become Batman. Drinking himself stupid in his son's room, he notes how useless this world is, and intends to kill it.
I hear that Punisher guy killed the Marvel Universe. Maybe I should get some pointers from him.
After killing Thawne, Tom couldn't go on knowing his son shared his pointy-eared vow, and just when he thought his reality was finally over, it kept going. After that visit from his son in the Flash, who's miscolored as Reverse Flash, whoopsie, he charged into the white nothingness, finding himself in the main universe, apparently dropped there by Thawne, having done so as revenge for killing him one reality over, since Thomas didn't want to keep living and all that. Now he keeps to keep on keeping on, knowing that his son has become him, and then Eobard zipped off after the button to get disintegrated by Dr. Manhattan. He went on to observe Bruce and Selina, the proposal, their double date with Clark and Lois, and even saved Joker after Bats took his then bride-to-be, thinking the clown was dead because there are so many things he doesn't see. Not true. He sees why kids love the taste of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Not everyone can say that. Feeling his son was approaching a false happiness, and apparently listening in on Booster Gold's explanation of his time travel mess, Thomas knew someone was behind everything, and asked who told the clown about the engagement. He apparently got a call from a banana, which somehow led to Bane. I don't know if it's a play on the guy's name or maybe the coloring of this page, but moving on. The Bruiser was skeptical that the father of his enemy would want to help plan to break his own son, and Thomas says it's just that he knows what's best for his boy. The flashback concludes with the reveal that he was the one who climbed out of the pit of Nain, reciting his personal vow as he rode his horse alone.
I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to cause my son some pain.
We return to the present day, where Bat Doc gets in the first punch, knocking his son to his knees. With Alfred gone, Bane in a coma, because of course a bullet to the head wouldn't kill him, he tells Bruce to listen to someone who made the same choice he did and suffered the consequences. He needs to abandon the mask, marry Selina, and avoid the horror of being the Bat. Yeah, because having a city where innocent people are policed by Arkham escapees while the government and country disregard their suffering isn't horrific in any way. I originally intended to get to the last issue here, but it's extra-sized, so we'll be getting to it next week. It'll offer some extra breathing room for the overall wrap-up. We've gotten some backstory on Thomas being dropped in our universe, though I'm not entirely sold on Thawne's reasoning. Actually feels a tad stilted. There really isn't much on how he got so effective in combat as to down half a dozen younger vigilantes, but we do see some of the tragedy that molded him into what he is beyond losing Bruce and Martha. Though for all his claims that Bruce overlooks certain things, he seems to not see the clear hypocrisy of his own actions, nor consider that he expects his son to live in a city where people are stepped on and a supervillain reigns supreme. I mean, what even is Bane's economic plan? I can't imagine property values in Gotham have gotten any better. Tune in next time for the final installment, Honest. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.